Presiding Officer, in responding to this year's programme for government, we cannot ignore the fiscal context in which the SNP Scottish Government has found itself in. Yes, there are pressures brought in by the new Labour Government, a government which, within weeks of taking office, stripped millions of pensioners of their winter fuel payment. A shameful decision that is being replicated by this SNP Scottish Government here at Holyrood. But the Nationalists really only have themselves to blame for the mess that they find themselves in. Yesterday, the Finance Secretary said that all members of Parliament must face up to the challenge. But it's SNP ministers and SNP MSPs that need to follow her advice. Even their own budget forecaster has said that, and I quote, "much of the pressure comes from the Scottish Government's own decisions." There's no one left to blame. There's nowhere left to hide. What we got yesterday, and in the programme for government today, are SNP choices. And what we got yesterday was SNP cuts that will have an impact on delivering the programme for government. So let's just remember where these cuts were. Yesterday we had cut to the economy budget, a budget held by the Deputy First Minister, but she's accepting her budget will be cut. The justice budget, cut. Rural affairs budget, cut. Transport budget, cut. Education and skills budget, cut. Health and social care budget, cut. It seems the only area that was protected was Angus Robertson's portfolio, the Constitution. The money the SNP government used to promote independence is more important to them than the vital public services that the people of Scotland expect to be delivered by this government. For years, the SNP government has patted itself on the back for their policies and decisions. But now the public can see that they are paying the price for these SNP choices. The SNP have also, for years, praised themselves at running a balanced budget. Let that claim never be uttered in this chamber again. They have lost control of the budget here in Scotland. They are filling the gap time after time. And I will give way in a moment to the Deputy First Minister. But let us be very clear. It is decisions and choices they have made that have led to a huge black hole in the Scottish Government's budget. I'll give way to the Deputy First Minister.
Deputy First Minister.
Can the member confirm that the Scottish Government by law is not allowed to overspend its budget? And can it name 1 year in the last 17 where the Scottish Government has overspent its budget?
Well, if they hadn't overspent their budget, they wouldn't be pulling in hundreds of millions of pounds from the ScotWind budget. You know, that money is coming in to fill the gaps they have created in their own budget. Choices by SNP ministers year after year are having an impact. They also promised that if we pay more in taxes in Scotland, that would fund better public services. Yet instead, the government is cutting from almost every department that delivers these public services. With the SNP, you pay more and you get less. Now, time and time again, Scottish Conservatives have warned against these raising taxes and the impact it would have for people and businesses across Scotland and our economy, and it was ignored. And what we are getting now is, because of this financial mismanagement, a threadbare programme for a government which has been published today. This was John Swinney's big moment. This was his chance to reset the SNP government after 17 years, to boldly launch his premiership as First Minister. Has he really been waiting 25 years to deliver that speech we have just listened to? Because what we got was a programme of tired old promises that should have been delivered years ago. In so many areas, we see any suggestion of bold action watered down or abandoned in favour of restating existing commitments. The First Minister is basically trying to make it impossible for his government to fail by promising nothing. Under John Swinney, the SNP are admitting that the SNP are out of ideas and out of ambition for Scotland. Let's just look at some of the proposals that we've heard today. And on eradicating child poverty, we all want to see that. We all want to do that. And the First Minister is just coming up, and I know what he's going to ask about. But why has it taken 17 years? He's been in government for 16 of those years. Why now, in 2024, is eradicating child poverty finally a priority for this government? And will he accept, as I'm about to allow his intervention, will he accept that child poverty has gone up since the SNP came to power in 2007?
First Minister.
I'm grateful to Mr Ross for giving way, and I'd point out to Mr Ross that the government of which I have been a member, although I had a year out of government, the government I've been a member of introduced the Scottish Child Payment, the boldest and biggest intervention to tackle child poverty in Europe since the 1980s. And the reason why we had to do that was because child poverty was spiralling because of the austerity that Douglas Ross voted for in the House of Commons when he was there. And now child poverty in Scotland is significantly lower than the rest of the United Kingdom because of... Well, it's higher than when we came to office because of Tory austerity. That's why it's higher. And finally, what position is Douglas Ross in to lecture me about child poverty when he voted for the two-child cap and is proud of it?
Douglas Ross.
John Swinney speaks about legislation he introduced and the governments he was part of introduced. What about the legislation in 2017 that set the target for reducing child poverty? Those targets have failed to be met. They are not going to be met because the SNP's governance of Scotland has seen child poverty increase rather than go downwards or be eradicated. Some other issues that are in this programme for government, which are important. You know, the NHS. It is crucial that we focus on our NHS because every single one of us will have cases, they are articulated on a weekly basis here in the Scottish Parliament, of patients suffering. But we didn't get any proper new information from the First Minister or the government today. It's going to be more of the same. They're going to deliver these changes despite a huge cut to the to the NHS budget announced yesterday. I don't think any patient or family of a patient watching this programme for government today will take any comfort from what they heard from John Swinney. We did certainly welcome his proposals to change ministerial investigations. I wonder if it's belatedly a recognition from John Swinney that he got it wrong over supporting his friend Michael Matheson. That shameful episode brought shame not just on John Swinney as a person, but the office of First Minister. And I wonder if that is the reason he has decided to allow the independent ministerial adviser on the Code of Conduct to be involved. Because clearly, John Swinney got it wrong. He got it wrong backing his friend rather than doing the right thing for the people of Scotland. Now, there's an awful lot being chuntered from the front bench. What has not been said in 30 minutes of the First Minister's speech was a single mention of drugs or alcohol. That did not register once. Not a single mention. It is not a priority for John Swinney or this SNP government. Just a month after we heard that in 2023, 1,172 people in Scotland died from drugs, an increase of 121 from the year before. If that is going to be a priority, a defining mission of his government to end these deaths, they don't even get a mention. Really, that is shameful from this SNP government that took its eye off the ball with drug and alcohol deaths and is still doing it by ignoring the situation as it is right now. Presiding Officer, this programme for government is yet another wasted opportunity from this SNP government, and there are not many left for them. Because, as well as things being included in this programme for government, there are other things that have been excluded. There was one small reference to the A9. Where was the commitment to fully dual the A96 from Inverness to Aberdeen? So the First Minister's had a lot to say, and I'll take his intervention. Does his government still support the dualling of the A96 from Inverness to Aberdeen, and when will that crucial road be fully dualled? First Minister.
Nothing to say.
Nothing?
Nothing to say.
He had plenty to say a minute ago. Really? a crucial link between two of Scotland's biggest cities, Inverness to Aberdeen, going through communities that have been promised a full upgrade and a dualling of that road for decades by the SNP. Not a single word in the programme for government, and now not a single word from the First Minister. The communities of the North East can see they are not a priority for this SNP First Minister. Presiding Officer, this is an opportunity, and this would have been an opportunity. Sorry, I thought someone wanted to intervene. They're just wondering why their First Minister had nothing to say about it. This could have been an opportunity to focus on education, on health, about improving public services, but instead we got more of the same failings, the same incompetence, the same focus on the wrong priorities. Do I have time to take an intervention? No. I'm sorry, I'm sure we'll hear from Keith Brown later. This is the same failings, the same incompetence and the same focus on the wrong priorities. This was the time to change gear, to turn things around and actually focus on the priorities of the Scottish public. Yet instead we have continuity from a First Minister who is the embodiment of continuity. The SNP have already lost control of public finances. They will soon lose control of the Scottish Government. They have let the people of Scotland down and they deserve to pay the price for it.